Thank you all for joining us today to learn more about ION. My name is Kim Stevens. I've been with the company for about 7 years in various roles, supporting our wholesale channels as well as educating our wholesale partners. So I'm so honored to be here with you today and share the latest and greatest information about our product line. So you may have known us by one or both of our previous brand names, Restore or ION Biome. We had some branding hurdles with the Restore name, so we rebranded to ION Biome in 2019. And while we liked the direction we were headed with the ION Biome brand, we wanted to bring the intelligence of nature more to the forefront. ION was always an acronym for intelligence of nature for us, but that wasn't always apparent to everyone else. So in September of 2021, we launched ION Intelligence of Nature. For us, that is much more than a name. It is a guiding belief that nature is designed brilliantly and perfectly and has had it right all along. We're excited to have that name lead our brand into the future, as well as to allow that wisdom to fuel everything that we do. We look to nature for the answers. Nature is always seeking balance. The more we've strayed from nature, the more disconnected we have become from our optimal health. The more we try to micromanage things, the more out of balance we become. We believe that the more we can reconnect with nature, the more balance that will bring to our internal and external world. The innate intelligence within nature primarily centers around two fundamental aspects of communication and connection. But how does this intelligence impact us? Well, our microbiome is the bridge between our outside world and our inside world by helping to facilitate that communication and connection. And when we look at the volume of genetic information from that ecosystem, we can quickly see that it trumps that of being human. We are one species with 20,000 genes. When we look at the microbiome, we've got bacteria at 40,000 species with 2 million genes, parasites at 300,000 species with 2 billion genes, and fungi at 3.5 million species with an astonishing 125 trillion genes. So if any part of this microbiome were out to get us, it would have succeeded. We're vastly outnumbered by it, and we believe that we're meant to live in symbiosis with this vast ecosystem of information rather than viewing it as a threat. In fact, we are hardly human. The number of microbial cells in our bodies outnumbers that of human cells by 10 to 1. And this is not a static environment. It is complex and ever-changing. Microbiome is everywhere and can change with what you eat, where you visit, the air you breathe, even the room that you're sitting in right now has its own unique microbiome. And this ecosystem plays a pivotal role in every function of our bodies. The human gut contains a diverse microbiome comprised of about 40 trillion microorganisms that cover us in an invisible armor to keep environmental insults out. They digest our food, they make our vitamins, they educate our immune system to keep pathogenic microbes out, and they produce essential brain chemicals known as neurotransmitters that control our mood. In essence, most of our well-being is riding on a well-balanced microbiome. Breakdown of this microbial balance can lead to intestinal issues such as bloating and bowel irregularities, but also to more serious inflammatory diseases such as diabetes, autism, allergies, even cancer. We have that dysbiosis has been attributed to a wide range of diseases, including the ones I just mentioned, but also more familiar ones associated with the gut like IBD, obesity. So those have been implicated in both human and animal models. And diversity is key in this environment. We'll go more into that later, but let's look deeper for a moment at where this ecosystem lives and what it needs to balance and thrive in our bodies. The epithelial layer is the largest barrier system in the body. It runs from your sinuses to your rectum. If you were to take it out and stretch it out, it would cover 2 tennis courts worth of surface area. This massive barrier is only 1 cell layer thick. So for context, that's half the width of a human hair. So it's extremely delicate. And right behind that delicate membrane barrier lies the gult. which stands for gut-associated lymphoid tissue. And that's where 70 to 80% of our immune system resides. That barrier is held together by protein structures called tight junctions. And the nutrient-rich layer, adjacent to the epithelial barrier is also essential in the maintenance of intestinal homeostasis. And it contains a thriving biofilm, otherwise known as the mucosal layer. When tight junctions are intact, it allows for a healthy regulation of that mucosal lining where the microbes can grow and thrive. So when we're talking about the gut, we're referring to the epithelial layer and the mucosal terrain that is equaling the gut lining. Foundational to the health of that gut lining are those tight junctions. Tight junctions are Velcro-like protein structures that hold the epithelial cells together in one cohesive membrane. They're like mortar between the bricks, if you will. They're typically meant to stay intact, but they can open to allow immune surveillance when there's something like a pathogenic bacteria present in the gut. But this should be a highly regulated and intelligent process, allowing nutrients through the gut barrier to be delivered where needed, while also blocking food particles and toxins from getting through. And the reason that we want such tight regulation here is because there's so much function riding on these junctions. Tight junction function impacts all aspects of health, not only our immune function and our inflammatory response, but also nutrient delivery and absorption, mental well-being. Some 15% of that gut lining is made up of enteroendocrine cells, which produce 90% of your serotonin and 50% of your dopamine. They also control cell hydration, detoxification, hormone production, and our sleep quality. As Hippocrates said, all disease begins in the gut, and the tight junctions are the unsung heroes of our gut health. But tight junctions are not unique to the gut membrane. Every membrane in our bodies is held together by tight junction proteins, and this includes our vascular system, our kidney membrane, your blood-brain barrier, even your skin is held together with tight junctions. So we feel if we can directly support that tight junction integrity, then we will have a strong protective barrier, gut barrier in particular, but all barriers, which will help keep toxins from entering our bloodstream and causing all kinds of havoc and dis-ease downstream. And this allows for a stable environment for our microbiome to balance and thrive, thus supporting our optimal and inherent health. But if nature is intelligent, what is the problem? And we are doing a number of things today that are directly impacting or disrupting this flow of intelligence in nature. Factory farming, processed foods, and widespread antibiotic use are some of the biggest ways that we disrupt this flow. But taking some NSAIDs and other medications, drinking alcohol, even stress, which none of us are avoiding, can lead to leak at the gut barrier. As a result, leaky gut has become increasingly widespread, with over 80% of the people in the US suffering from some sort of gut issue today. Leaky gut is a condition in which the tight junctions, or those cellular seals of the gut lining, become damaged, allowing toxins and other food particles to seep into the bloodstream, which in turn can ignite a cascade of chronic inflammation. So breaking down these exposure points that we're seeing, we think of antibiotics primarily in the form of a prescription when we hear that word. And 83% of the population is taking at least one antibiotic prescription per year, but that number has stayed the same for the last 15 to 20 years, where we've really reached max saturation. The other 17% of the population is either not going to their doctor or they don't believe in taking antibiotics. So we really have not seen this number increase. One important thing to note here about these antibiotic prescriptions, just one course of antibiotics per year can impact your microbiome for up to at least a year. And shockingly, it also increases your chances of major depressive disorder by 25%. 2 courses of antibiotics increases that particular statistic to 40%. So that could be an indicator of why we see such a massive increase in depression disorders in this country. We're seeing 10 times as much antibiotics in our meat, dairy, and poultry industries, roughly 30 million pounds per year. And we're exposed at a much more frequent basis in that way. If you are not sourcing organic or regenerative forms of these foods, then you could be exposed on a daily basis in this way. And the most prevalent exposure to antibiotics, surely we're seeing exposure on a daily basis to this. And for us, it's the most concerning is through glyphosate. It's a chemical sprayed on the plants that we eat, on the grass that our children and our pets run and play in. Just a brief history to recap what this chemical is and its progression, its evolution through our agricultural systems. Glyphosate was originally patented in 1961 as a metal chelator and descaler. Descaling agents are effective metal binders, which can grab onto calcium, magnesium, and heavy metals, and they make them water soluble, so they're easily removable. But with this ability, glyphosate is also able to strip minerals out of the soil as well as from our bodies. Monsanto's next patent on glyphosate was as a broad-spectrum herbicide in 1971, and they brought it to market and made it famous under the name Roundup, which we're all familiar with. But it went off patent as an herbicide in 2000, and it's now manufactured by every chemical company in the world. And today, it's the most pervasive toxin used in our food supply. In 2002, Monsanto tapped into a whole new market with this chemical by marketing glyphosate to farmers as a way to desiccate wheat, as wheat is one of the only crops that needs to be dead before it can be harvested. So a majority of the wheat in our country, unless organic, is sprayed with glyphosate pre-harvest, which greatly increased usage rates. In 2010, Monsanto patented glyphosate as a broad-spectrum antimicrobial or antibiotic, as it is able to kill any single-cell organism that it touches. This patent has led to major concerns about possible harm caused by glyphosate, including the killing of beneficial gut bacteria, which causes immune system damage. Despite these concerning facts, we are seeing 300 million pounds of this chemical used in U.S. soil every year, and an astonishing 4.5 billion pounds worldwide every year. Now, glyphosate is water soluble, which is a unique property of this chemical. This means that it is able to permeate groundwater and it stays in the water system, evaporating into the air and raining back down on the earth. Because of this unique quality, it's now being detected in 75% of the air and rainwater samples taken in the United States. According to an exposure study performed in early 2015 by the Detox Project, that was commissioned by the Organic Consumers Association, 93% of Americans tested positive for detectable levels of glyphosate at 3 parts per billion. This is well over the permitted levels in tap water in the EU. So the average American is walking around with much more glyphosate in our systems than is in the tap water in the EU, that at 1.1 parts per billion is what's permitted there. So the point being with all of these stats is that even if we're eating 100% organic, we are not avoiding exposure to this chemical. It is just too widespread and pervasive in our environment. You can see this astonishing rate of increase visually here. And when glyphosate was first released, farmers had to be very diligent with how they applied this chemical. As it kills anything it touches, they had to be very judicious and spray the perimeters of the fields, making sure that the chemical did not reach the root systems of the plants because it would kill them. But with the creation of GMO Roundup Ready crops in 1996, that meant that they could spray this chemical directly onto the crops, and the crops could tolerate being exposed to it. By 2014, glyphosate usage rates in the US had increased 9-fold since 1996, just in that short period of time, and 15-fold worldwide. From the late 70s, when it was first brought to market, to 2016, there was a 100-fold increase in the frequency and volume of application of these glyphosate-based herbicides. In the US, the largest amount of this chemical you can see is sprayed across the farmlands of the Midwest. Because it is a water-soluble toxin, it concentrates in the Mississippi River and it flows out through the Gulf of Mexico. Currently, the last 100 miles of the Mississippi River from Baton Rouge to New Orleans is now known as Cancer Alley, with the highest rates of cancer in the country being found there. And there is the largest marine dead zone in the world where the Mississippi River meets the Gulf. In 2021, the Gulf of Mexico hypoxic zone, or dead zone, that means essentially that's an area of low oxygen, which can kill fish and marine life near the bottom of the sea. That dead zone is measuring 6,334 square miles, the largest in the world again. And this year's dead zone is larger than the average measured for the past 5 years. So there is no slowdown of this hypoxic water happening. So we're just seeing a rapid increase in that unfortunate killing of the life forms in the water there. Now, the way glyphosate functions as an herbicide is by blocking an essential enzyme pathway known as the shikimate pathway. The shikimate pathway is a 7-step metabolic process that is responsible for making 5 of our 9 essential amino acids. These essential amino acids are deemed essential because they can't be synthesized from scratch by the body fast enough to supply its demand and must therefore come from the diet. So while we don't use the shikimate pathway, our food, fungi and bacteria that grow our food, help inform our food, in fact do. Glyphosate is causing a direct inability to synthesize amino acids and proteins, making it much harder for the microbiome to thrive and to build healthy bodies. The amino acids that are being blocked from production by glyphosate are the aromatic amino acids. These aromatic amino acids are responsible for making the alkaloids, which are the medicinal qualities in our food. I'm just going to read some examples of what these blocked essential amino acids do in the body. Phenylalanine is necessary to produce dopamine, which has an effect on depression, ADHD, Parkinson's disease, chronic pain, and osteoarthritis. Tryptophan helps produce melatonin, which helps regulate the sleep-wake cycle, and serotonin, which helps regulate appetite, sleep, mood, and pain. The liver can also use tryptophan to produce niacin, which is also known as vitamin B3, and that is needed for energy metabolism and DNA production. And finally, tyrosine is in all tissues of the human body and in most of its fluids. It helps the body build proteins and produce enzymes, thyroid hormones, and also the skin pigment melanin. It is an essential component to produce several important neurotransmitters, which help nerve cells communicate, including epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine. So we have seen a drastic rise in many correlated chronic conditions that are correlated with similar symptoms, that these amino acids would potentially provide medicinal qualities to remedy. In just the last several decades, we've seen an explosion of autoimmune diseases, diabetes, cancer, anxiety, and depression disorders. Now, that's the indirect impact of glyphosate. Even more concerning is the way that glyphosate directly impacts our health. Our gut membrane is the first line of internal defense from toxins. Research in our lab has shown that glyphosate at levels acceptable by the FDA reduces the integrity of our gut lining through disruption of the tight junctions that bind it together. We measure gut line integrity through TEER, which stands for transepithelial electrical resistance. The higher the resistance, the stronger the membrane is. Conversely, the lower the TEER, the more increased permeability of that membrane, also known as leaky gut, if we're looking at the epithelial layer. These results indicate that glyphosate causes a breakdown of the protective barrier between our gut and our bloodstream. This is not only altering our gut lining, which is the terrain, includes the terrain upon which our microbiome lives and thrives, but it's also opening the gates to foreign particles that can directly assault your immune system. Remember, right on the other side of that membrane is where 70 to 80% of your immune system lives. So this is going to cause inflammation. You can see here from the cell culture images on the left-hand side of the page, that's your gut membrane. That's what a healthy gut membrane should look like. Those green lines are immunofluorescents used to stain the tight junctions. So you can see the tight junctions there. The slide on the right-hand side of the page, or the center of the page, is the gut membrane on 20 parts per million of glyphosate. That amount is what you would typically see eating a non-organic piece of produce, say a piece of corn, and that is what is deemed as the FDA safe level for us to consume on a daily basis. This is what happens to your gut membrane after about 60 minutes of exposure to that much of that chemical. On the bar graph on the right-hand side of the page, we're showing this loss of integrity through TEER. Again, that transepithelial electrical resistance being measured in ohms. The vehicle is the control, that nice, tight, healthy gut membrane. We see about an equivocal loss of integrity with exposure to gluten and glyphosate. So about a 50% reduction in that tight junction expression already with those things singularly. When we combine those two things, which is the case when glyphosate is used to desiccate wheat, we see an almost total loss of that gut membrane integrity. So they have a compounding effect when combined with each other. Again, one of the unique qualities of glyphosate is that it is water soluble. Monsanto has claimed that glyphosate is safe for human consumption because it is water soluble, saying that we would excrete it through our urine as quickly as we consumed it. Because of this water soluble quality, once glyphosate causes leak at your first line of defense, the gut barrier, and then goes systemic, it then flows throughout the entire body, breaking apart every protective barrier in your body before it is processed and excreted by your kidneys. So with adding this one chemical to our food supply, we have blocked the necessary tools to build and maintain a healthy body. We've destroyed our internal protective barriers, and we've removed the medicinal qualities from our food that would treat the resulting conditions. If there are all kinds of foreign particles, toxins, and irritants breaking through the gut barrier, and the immune system is having to rapidly produce antibodies to deal with everything it doesn't recognize, you will enter a chronic inflammatory cascade. We believe that if we can keep this first domino of the gut membrane from falling, we can alleviate this chronic inflammatory cascade. And ION's products were created to do just that. ION, no pun intended, plugs you back into the intelligence of nature. We start with humic extract from 60-million-year-old soil. These are the decayed remains from a tropical rainforest and a time when dinosaurs lived off plants alone and grew to be the size of skyscrapers, thriving from a level of microbiome diversity we have likely not seen since they went extinct. This soil contains a family of bacterial metabolites, not bacteria, but made by bacteria. Bacteria are single-cell organisms, so they need a way of communicating with each other and with their larger cellular world. And they do this as they digest plant and animal matter. They produce these bacterial metabolites, which they use as molecular words. Each of the 30 to 40,000 species that we know of producing their own unique variations of these words. The metabolites, or bacterial words in ION, are the breakdown products from this particularly rich and diverse time in natural history. Over the years, these bacterial metabolites have mixed with naturally occurring trace minerals to create something like an ancient compost pile, made up largely of two categories of molecules, humates and fulvates. Both fulvates and humates are molecularly diverse carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen-rich molecules in thousands of different molecular structures that are both designed to support plant and human life. Humate molecules, however, are much larger than fulvates, anywhere from 10 to 100 times larger in size, and they aren't as suited as the smaller fulvate molecules to support health or human health anyway, at a cellular level. They're not small enough to get through that cell membrane. Fulvates, however, are the molecules within the humic soil that shuttle messages into the plant cell or into human cells. And this electron transfer is the foundation of how ION works to support inherent health. Electron transfer is otherwise known as redox signaling, which you may have heard us talk about a time or two. And this is how communication happens on a cellular level. The word redox is a combination of the words reduction and oxidation. A redox reaction is a type of chemical reaction that involves a transfer of electrons between two species and includes any chemical reaction in which the oxidation number of a molecule, ion, or atom changes by gaining or losing an electron. A simple way to remember this is by the acronym OIL-RIG. So redox, oxidation is loss, reduction is gain, OIL-RIG. The structure of the folate molecules that are in ion are uniquely suited to support this redox signaling because they have an open binding site and they can readily donate and receive electrons based on what the molecule they're communicating with needs. Redox reactions are common and they're vital to some of the most basic functions of life, including photosynthesis, respiration, combustion, corrosion, which we're all familiar with as an oxidative process. This process is an intrinsic, tightly regulated component of cell metabolism, controlling cell growth and differentiation. Redox signaling in the gut lining is held in an intricate balance, and we're seeing from emerging evidence that it's suggesting precise control of that signaling in the barrier-forming cells of the gut may actually dictate the inflammatory response. We are demonstrating this regulation of response in the gut cells with ion's ability to selectively modulate mitochondrial output of ROS. So mitochondria live inside of the cell and they produce reactive oxygen species based on the stress level. Simply put, reactive oxygen species are free radicals. For a quick refresher, free radicals are simply oxygen atoms that have 7 electrons in their outer valence rather than 8. And so they're so hungry for an 8th electron that they will grab it from anything within reach, including our lipids, our proteins, even our DNA. And this can cause damage to cell membranes and biological macromolecules. What we see when placing ion on healthy cells is a decreased free radical production response, which equates to the cells that we've put that ion on living longer with lower stress levels. And it indicates a greater efficiency in energy production. Theoretically, if we can keep the mitochondrial functioning properly and ATP producing in adequate amounts, we don't age at a cellular level. We see that aging process when there's too much stress and the mitochondria can't keep up with that stress level. So when we put in the opposite fashion, when we put ion on a diseased cell line or a damaged cell line, we see that ROS number increase, or that free radical response increase. And that induces cell apoptosis on the cells that need to turn over so that they can be replaced by a healthy stem cell. Remember, cancer is just a diseased cell that doesn't recognize that it is diseased and that it needs to die off, and it begins replicating itself in that damaged form. So if we want that healthy response of the cell to know that it is supported and the free radical damage to go down when it's healthy enough to continue to live, and we want it to increase so that that cell turns over naturally in the damaged cells. So while there are humate molecules in ion, it's really the folate molecule that's the magic and lies at the heart of ion science. We often get asked, and I'm sure many of you do too, how ion is different from other fulvic and humic products. Well, the folate molecules in ion are unique and unlike humic and fulvic acid in both form and function. With fulvic acid, the molecule's binding sites are already bonded with a hydrogen atom. Hydrogen is monogamous, so once it's bonded to an oxygen, that's pretty much it. It's very committed. They're not willing to give up that bond easily. They're monogamous partners. There's little sharing between molecules, and thus fulvic and humic acids do not have the ability to perform that communication or electron transfer, and they tend to be oxidative over time. Folvates, however, have that open binding site, and there is an ionic metal or mineral at the end of those carbon-oxygen chains. And these minerals are indiscriminate or polyamorous, if you will. They're all about that free love. They will latch on to any oxygen, even multiple oxygens at the same time. So with folvate, there is a lot of electron sharing or communication going on. And because they can give or take based on what the molecule they're interacting with needs, they have a balancing effect. These molecules are designed to work collaboratively, with human cells, which innately know what they need for optimal health. Nature knows how to do things properly. We just have to give it the tools that it needs. At its core, the gift of this unique folvate lies in its ability to both give and take. The ability to donate and accept is how ion works to perform at least 4 important functions in the body. As an antioxidant, the folate molecules in ion not only have the ability to quench free radicals by donating an ion to stabilize them, but even cooler, we're finding they also upregulate NRF2, which is the master regulator of endogenous antioxidants. And those are antioxidants generated by the body. That's what endogenous antioxidants means. So not only is ion itself an antioxidant, it actually helps to upregulate the body's production of other antioxidants like glutathione, which is your most potent antioxidant. As a carrier, these folate molecules help convert minerals into a bioavailable form, and then they're small enough to carry them into the cells that need them. In addition to minerals and metals, folate carries and can carry and deliver other nutrients, including amino acids, peptides, vitamins, and they also make them bioavailable to human cells. As a chelator, they can grab onto waste from inside the cell and carry it out. And when folate binds with toxins, it decreases their bioavailability. So it's trapping those toxins and making sure they can't do any more harm. This means ion gut support, when used daily, supports a very gentle, natural detox. And finally, as a communicator, we've just gone over that, but the molecules in ion are uniquely structured and balanced to support that transfer of electrons from microbe to cell, as well as cell to cell, and that is also known as redox signaling. All of these properties allow for coordinated cell protection, injury response, and repair. We call this molecular family of folvates terahydrite, and this proprietary blend of humic extract is the common thread throughout our entire product suite. To make this blend, we use purified water to gently separate and isolate the smaller folate molecules. We then balance the minerals and electrical charges so that the folate is best suited to serve that electron transfer or communication capability of both bacterial and human cells. And just addressing the elephant in the room, we don't believe that probiotics are addressing the root cause of our gut issues. We're just scratching the surface of what we know about the gut and about the microbiome and what it should look like. And we don't believe that we have enough information at this time to effectively micromanage that environment. And dumping billions of copies of the same species of bacteria every day is taking this micromanagement approach, and taken long-term will monocrop the gut. Further, if probiotics were the answer, why does 80% of our population still have gut issues? Just looking at this back-to-back studies that were done in the Cell Journal, in the journal Cell, in 2018. The first study they did was on mice, and then they performed the study again on humans because the mice results were so astonishing to them. So they took 60 mice. They took a snapshot of their microbiome for the baseline, the gray line at the top there, and then they gave them all an antibiotic. The mice were then randomized and divided into 3 groups. One group received a fecal transplant from their pre-microbiome or pre-antibiotic microbiome. That is the brown line. And this intervention seemed to work best, where they recouped the pre-antibiotic microbiome diversity in about 30 days. The second group received a sugar pill and virtually no post-antibiotic intervention. And they were able to recoup to about 50% baseline, a few larger bumps there, but at least to 50% in about 45 days. The last group was given a probiotic. The last group was given a probiotic, and you can see here that there was an initial bump in the introduction of that probiotic, but then they flatline out to the level that they were after antibiotics. So, that's looking at it out to 50 days. Again, these results were so shocking to them that they replicated this in humans, and that's the graph you see on the right-hand side of the page. Same methodology, giving all of the participants an antibiotic and then randomizing them and giving them these 3 different interventions. The probiotics had more of a positive effect in the humans, but that group still never reached the point of their pre-antibiotic microbiome diversity, even after 180 days. And according to these results here, no intervention actually worked better than the probiotic did. So, ION is going beyond that probiotic approach, and we're taking a more passive approach to gut health and reconnecting to the innate wisdom and the healing capacity of nature, rather than adding what we think this very complex and constantly changing environment needs that day. Physiology says things inevitably break, and once they break, they're very difficult to repair. We are seeing exactly the opposite happen in our labs. Once we plug the cells back into nature, the only inevitable seems to be repair. The ability to scavenge free radicals is how ION is helping to maintain the integrity of the gut. Free radicals will degrade a critical enzyme known as DPP4, which is responsible for breaking down the gliadin, which is a toxic peptide in gluten that is upregulating zonulin. The upregulation of zonulin is what is actually causing the tight junctions to break down and leading to leaky gut. So the DPP4 enzyme, which would deal with that zonulin toxin, is being broken down by the level of free radicals that we're being exposed to. In our first peer-reviewed, third-party peer-reviewed study, we showed the protective effects of ION on this tight junction injury that's caused by gliadin. On the top left, you see the healthy gut membrane. In this study, we used our typical method of staining the tight junctions with that immunofluorescence, and then we stained the nucleus of the cells blue. So you can see in the control, it's not the best image, but you can see the tight junctions are intact and the cells are, connected to one another. In the slide on the upper right-hand side of the screen, you can see that's exposure to gliadin. That's the equivalent of one slice of pizza. And you can see the tight junctions have become almost like perforated lines, and there are definite gaps between each cell. They're not touching any longer. On the lower left-hand side of the screen, we see the control cell line treated with ION gut support. So already when we measure this with that tier, we see an increased expression, a stronger, more cohesive membrane, just with the introduction of these communication molecules. The slide on the lower right-hand side of the screen is that ION gut support treated membrane with the introduction of that same amount of gliadin, one slice of pizza, and we measure that over an hour, several hours of time. But what we observe is no drop in that tight junction integrity, and actually a stronger membrane. And just one cool thing that I love to tell people about these studies, because the nucleus is stained blue in this particular study, we were able to capture the mitochondria dealing with the toxin inside the cell. So you can see in the right-hand images, the gliadin slides, and the top, you can see the green fairy dust, and that's the mitochondria trying to deal with the toxin that has entered into the cell. And on the lower half, you can already see an increased response from the cell, where it's able to deal with that toxin more effectively when it has the tools that it needs to effectively communicate and mitigate. We used the same methodology in our second peer-reviewed study, showing the effects of glyphosate on the gut membrane and the ability for ION to prevent that injury. So again, the top right image is showing, top left image is showing that normal gut membrane. Those green lines are the tight junctions. The top right image is showing your gut on glyphosate's damage after 30 minutes time. The glyphosate decreased the tear in the small bowel cells by 76% over that short period of time. And we, again, use the EPA's safe level of glyphosate in this experiment of 20 parts per million. So that's equivalent to eating an ear of corn that has been sprayed with glyphosate. In the bottom left image, we're showing the normal gut lining with the addition of ION gut support. Again, there's already an increased expression of tight junctions and a higher tear here. In fact, ION increased tear by 93% after introduction. The bottom right image demonstrates ION gut support's ability to prevent glyphosate's damage to tight junctions. ION not only prevents the damage that glyphosate causes to the tight junctions if it's in play beforehand, but in the presence of toxin, the membrane is actually stronger. So after exposure, the body, just when it has the tools that it needs, has the ability to fight off that injury. And it has this beautiful yin yang effect of, like, once you challenge it, it gets even stronger. And so it's just beautiful to witness. We've also studied the response of the blood-brain barrier to these toxins and the impact of ION on that barrier system. What we did with the study was to both grow the blood-brain barrier and test it by attempting to injure it directly with these toxins. And then we also grew an epithelial barrier with a blood-brain barrier over top of it and measured the response of those membranes by injuring the gut membrane. And in this study, the blood-brain barrier is not directly injured by gliadin. However, when we injure the gut barrier with gliadin, the blood-brain barrier immediately went down. So that's how intimately these two barriers are connected, and shows that when we support the tight junctions in the gut, that is going to positively impact the structure of the blood-brain barrier membrane as well. We've performed 2 human clinical trials. Those were double-blind placebo, measured the effects of ION over 2 weeks of recommended usage in healthy populations. What we observed in the first study was a 12% reduction in zonulin being what actually dissolves those tight junctions. So ION is upregulating that DPP4 enzyme that's chewing up the toxin. It's dealing with the free radicals so that the DPP4 enzyme is not degraded. And so we're seeing a lowered amount of zonulin in the bloodstream. This is measured in urine. So this is indicating the toxins that are getting through that leaky barrier. We also observed a 17% reduction in chronic inflammatory markers, IL-6 in particular, indicating that the immune system had less insults to deal with over that 2-week period. And then additionally, a 23% reduction in glyphosate. So there is less toxin load in the bloodstream having to be dealt with by the immune system and then processed by the kidneys. In our second clinical trial, we wanted to look at any increase in those blocked amino acids. And what we observed was a 114% increase in lysine production. Lysine is one of those 5 amino acids that's being blocked by the shikimate pathway, or is produced by the shikimate pathway, and is thus being blocked when those plants are treated with glyphosate. This particular amino acid is necessary to produce hormones, immune cells, enzymes. It helps regulate our DNA transcription through histone modification, and most notably, and most familiar to most of us, is its direct involvement in collagen production. Collagen is the 3D dimensional structural support of our connective tissue, so it makes sense why we would see more connectivity across our cell membranes with this increase of lysine. And we did measure 2 types of lysine. One would indicate increase from a dietary source. The other would be from a microbiome production. And what we saw in our clinical trial was the latter, that the microbiome is able to produce these essential amino acids in our guts, even if we're not getting them from a dietary source, provided it has the vocabulary to communicate effectively to do that job. We've also observed a 50% increase in glutathione production. We are working on writing up that data. We've performed gold standard toxicity studies on kidney or renal tubule cells with ION. And this study on kidney cells is considered gold standard because the kidney cells are the most sensitive in the body, and they would be the first to show signs of damage. So in the first set of bar graphs here on the left-hand side of the page, we floated kidney cells in lab-grade purified water, so completely pure water, and we measured the cell death rates over a 24-hour period. Naturally, 15% of these cells died in a 24-hour period. That's just how sensitive they are. We then, for the safety study, floated these kidney cells in 100% ION solution and measured the cell death rate over that same 24-hour period and observed only a 6% drop. So that shows that ION is actually safer than pure lab-grade water on the most sensitive cells in the body. We replicated this study on small intestine and colon cells, and we saw similar results with each, showing an extended lifespan of all 3 cell types with the introduction and exposure to ION. Because ION is benefiting all the critical functions of the body, we truly believe that this product is foundational to any health regimen or protocol. It is going to help everything else you are doing work better, including the food that you're eating. It's going to be better absorbed at a cell level. We proudly carry the Autism Hope Alliance Autism Approved seal, and we have also earned the Detox Project's Glyphosate Residue Free seal. You all are probably familiar, but it does come in 4 sizes. The 32-ounce being a 2-month supply, 16-ounce being a 1-month supply, 8-ounce 2 weeks, and then the 3-ounce is great for carrying around in your purse or put in your kid's lunchbox. It's also TSA compliant for travel. So this product is nature working at its most fundamental level. And we've shown how these foundational functions, the redox communication, the chelator carrier ability, transporting nutrients in and waste out, and then the quenching of the free radicals and toxins is allowing ION to support human health in a myriad of ways. The benefits listed on the bottle are improved digestion. So when tight junctions are damaged by harmful pesticides like glyphosate, uncontrolled absorption of undigested food particles and other foreign substances like toxins can create that inflammatory response. ION helping to regulate that tight junction function is thus improving the digestion and the nutrient absorption. 70% of the body's pathogen-fighting white blood cells reside in the gut and the digestive tract. So gut health 100% equals immune health. And by upregulating the antioxidants and acting as an antioxidant, ION is lowering those immune markers and supporting the optimal function of our immune system. For mood and mental clarity, approximately 15% of your gut lining, again, is made up of those enteroendocrine cells, which are producing 90% of your dopamine, and 90% of your serotonin and 50% of your dopamine. Through direct support of tight junction integrity in the gut and the blood-brain barrier, ION is allowing your body to naturally produce these neurotransmitters that are most associated with your good mood and mental clarity. We do recommend this product to be taken several times a day, preferably 30 minutes before meals, but the frequency is much more important than exact timing here. The reason we recommend you take it 30 minutes before you eat is because we want that nice tight membrane intact before you're likely to be exposed to any toxins that would harm or get through into your bloodstream there. But if you forget, take it when you remember. Take it with the food, take it after the food, just take it. We have a lot of people that will actually mix it in non-chlorinated water. As long as the water bottle is not metal, you can do that, and you can continue to sip on that information all day long. And, your gut membrane, it's not a static environment at all, but it's also on a cellular level turning over every 72 hours. So every 72 hours, you have a completely new gut lining as far as the cells go. So you want to make sure that you're continuing to bathe those new cells in this coherent intelligence. We do find that some people react sensitively. Again, the folate molecules that are in ION are innate to the human body. If you have bacteria in your body, which we all do, thankfully, we have some representation of these metabolites present in the body. So we don't think it's possible for anyone to be allergic to this product. That said, when the communication is fluent, happening more effectively, we can see that systems and processes upregulate, including the detox capacity. So some who have, been dealing with chronic inflammation for years or have been taking probiotics for an extended amount of time, they may see a more uncomfortable detox when these processes and communication come online. So we do recommend that you start slowly with these individuals, or that you recommend they start slowly. 1/8 of a teaspoon once a day. You can double that every 3 to 7 days as their body allows. So if they're taking 1/8 of a teaspoon for 3 days and they don't feel anything, they can then go up to 1/8 of a teaspoon twice a day. And then you want to increase it to 1/8 of a teaspoon 3 times a day when they're ready to do that. And then begin increasing the amount they're taking each time. So this allows for a slow introduction, allows for the body to catch up to that, those processes, and it allows for a much more comfortable acclimation to this increased communication. We also recommend that children start with that sensitive usage, any child under 3 years old. And then those that may be on dealing with their own set of chronic conditions. We don't, we do see smaller bottles. Again, that 3-ounce travel size is great for increased compliance with the product. It's a great add-on to sell when someone is just getting on the product for the first time. You know, you're going to want to take it with you everywhere you go. And those are refillable from the larger sizes. We don't see many contraindications at all with this product, but there are a few things we recommend separation from. One of those being any medications or supplements that contain iodine. We recommend a 60-minute separation, and that's because they have competing charges and they will make each other less effective. Binders are also something you want to separate from Ion, as well as a product ASEA. That's another redox supplement. I'm not going to go deep into it, but if someone is taking ASEA, they would want to take it at least, you know, a few minutes apart, those two. The other things we recommend a 60-minute separation. Medications, this is just standard for anything you're changing about the diet. Medications that are blood level monitored should be checked within 2 weeks of starting Ion. Again, as those processes come back online, as absorption increases, we want to make sure that nothing needs to be adjusted there. You want to support your gut membrane from the start, which is at the sinuses. Ion Sinus Support is the same formula as Ion Gut Support, and it helps to rinse your nasal passages of chemicals and environmental toxins. It helps make sure that things that might cause that allergen or inflammatory response don't get through leaky junctions, and it promotes healthy nasal breathing. It can be a great way to introduce to sensitive individuals this communication network. And additionally, folks that have SIBO, Dr. Zach has often said that they will continue to inoculate the bacterial overgrowth in their guts through that of their nose. So it's extremely important to address the nasal microbiome in addition to the gut with those folks. And honestly, we recommend that everybody address it in both areas. Unfortunately, our pets are being exposed to glyphosate and these toxins at levels much higher than what we are, as much as 10 times higher in their food. So we have created a product to protect them from this toxin using the same humic extract with the addition of silicone as MMST. And this MMST is a very bioavailable and safe form of silicone. This formula is supporting their unique digestion, their kidney function, their immune function, and their vitality. And it promotes kidney tight junctions more effectively, we've seen, than the human formula does across 6 different species, not including the human. Human is there to show that it does also work in humans. And we do get that question a lot. It's totally safe to give Ion Gut Support to your pets. It's totally safe for Ion Gut Support for pets to be consumed by humans, but those formulas are optimized for each respective species. So animals see more leak at their kidney membrane than they do at their gut membrane with exposure to these toxins. So this formula is just better supporting those kidney tight junctions. The microbiome does not stop at the gut, so neither did we. And Ion always worked topically. It does have a very potent anti-inflammatory response, but we wanted to tailor a formula that addressed the specialized needs of our outermost barrier. So in September of last year, we debuted Ion Skin Support. Tight junctions, again, are also found in your skin, and glyphosate can cause damage to those too. Ion Skin Support is scientifically proven, to strengthen your barrier against toxins. It supports a healthy response to the sun, and it improves cellular hydration in keratinocytes. It is specially formulated to work with keratinocytes and stabilize free radical production in response to the sun, and while also promoting an increase of glutathione, which again is your body's most potent antioxidant. We started with the same innovative blend as our Ion Gut Support. Again, we think that is the key to effective microbial communication. And then we added some bioavailable minerals. Silicone is known to support collagen production, as well as skin, hair, and bone health. And that's, again, that MMST form of silicone. Zinc gluconate has anti-inflammatory properties, and it's known to regulate immune response on the skin. Copper gluconate, also known as nature's Botox, is proven to improve skin's firmness and smoothness by promoting collagen and elastin production. And then finally, magnesium citrate acts as an anti-inflammatory, calming agent, soothing many skin irritants like acne, rosacea, eczema, and it aids in fortifying the skin's natural moisture barrier. We've seen already some incredible science coming out from our test with this product. In the first graph, we're looking at that ROS production, or free radical production, and that is indicating a lower production of free radicals in skin cells in response to UVB3 and UVB6 light. So you can see the brown lines are just the skin's standard response to those stimuli, the UVB3 and UVB6, and then the lowered free radical response with the introduction of ion. In the second graph, we show ion skin support's ability to promote increased tear. No surprise there. We've seen that in the gut membrane as well as the skin membrane. That is providing that protective resistance and barrier against toxins. We have also observed a huge increase, 53% increase in glutathione in skin cells with the introduction of the ion skin support. Again, glutathione is the body's most important antioxidant. And so we are observing that increased ability to deal with injury in the skin cells as well. Now, many of you are in the retail environment who will be watching this training, and we are very big on education here at ION, and to make educating your store staff as simple and convenient as possible, ION is partnered with Expert Voice, who is the leader in brand education for natural and nutrition products. And so we will be sending out pocket-sized clip note cards either through a rep or directly to your store, containing a QR code that links to our lessons there. And that'll be an easy reference point for your store staff to understand what the most important things to know about ION are, as well as the ability to dive deeper into our lesson. And anyone who completes our lesson and passes the EduGame will receive a free 8-ounce bottle of ION Gut Support so they can get an experience with this product. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. And just as our passion for root cause solutions has led us to ION, it has continued to lead us in all aspects of health. We are forging a path to restoration across the planet, and it is critical that our pursuit of health begins with reconnecting to nature. You all are a part of that mission by supporting ION and purchasing and recommending ION products. You are helping us to restore this connection to nature in the soil. Farmers Footprint is a coalition of farmers, educators, doctors, scientists, and business leaders that are passionately engaged with the community, aiming to educate about the human environmental impacts of chemical farming and offering farmers a path forward through regenerative agriculture practices. We donate a portion of all ION sales to Farmers Footprint. And if you want to learn more about that organization and that mission, you can visit us at farmersfootprint.us. That concludes our presentation for today, and I just want to thank you all so much for joining us to learn more about the intelligence of nature and the ION product line. We are so grateful to be on this journey with you. We couldn't do it without you, and we're thankful to have you by our side in this journey to our intrinsic health. Thank you so much.